Hi guys, it's Megan from imamom2.wordpress.com. So it's report card season for my kids, and since kind of the point of my channel has been to show what's different in our family because of my kids' various special needs, I figured I should share what the actual report cards are like for us. I'm not going to actually show you the actual report card because there's so much identifying information and, you know, my kids and all that. But my daughter gets, I guess what you could call as a regular report card, where it's basically all, you know, set out with learning skills and work habits, and then each subject listed, like language and French and math, science and technology, social studies, health and physical education, and the arts. And, you know, listed as report 1 and report 2. And we had a progress report, I think it was November, something like that, that kind of gives you the kind of how they're doing so that you can correct for the actual report card that happens in January or February. I guess it's February now. So hers is pretty standard. It's just kind of a regular report card. Now she does have an IEP, which is called an individualized education plan, in relation to language, which for her specifically is literacy. She's always had some challenges with it, and it took many, many years of me politely screaming and yelling to say there's something going on here, there's a disconnect happening. And finally, once I was able to transfer her into, well, first we had to get her out of French immersion because her and French just weren't working. I should say that it was actually exacerbating her anxiety disorder and also the literacy disconnect that she had. So last year, when she then transferred to the same school that my son is in, which has a much higher acknowledgement, I guess, or understanding of special needs than her previous schools did, I was able to actually get her some extra support. So it's going to be an ongoing support thing for her. It basically comes down to, if she hears it, it's stuck in her brain forever and ever and ever. If she has to read it, it's really, really challenging for her. So we do have some extra assessments that need to happen to really figure out what that disconnect is. But her report card just looks like any other kid's report card, where she actually has letter grades for everything. Just in the language section of her report card, it actually states that it's based on her IEP, which is the Individualized Education Plan. So overall, she did fantastic, which is great. 1A, the rest of them were B's. Yay, I'm happy. Especially compared to a number of years ago when she switched into a class where the teacher was lovely. I'll put that out there. But the teacher was also not organized, not structured in any way, shape, or form, and really had no expectations of the children. And my daughter doesn't do well in that kind of an environment. So she went from her usual A's and B's to failing in one semester. And yeah, that's when everything really started happening, because I increased my screaming and yelling. But now she's back to her regular grades, and she's doing fantastic, which is great. So my son, however, as you know, if you're a regular watcher or read my blog, he has autism, and he's considered to be on the severe end of the spectrum, whatever that means. And so he was actually able to qualify for a very specific program here, which is an autism-specific class. So the teacher is specialized in autism. The educational assistants are specialized in autism. Any helpers that come in at least have a specialty in special needs. Some of them have the specialty in autism. And in his class of grade 4, there is 6 kids and 1 teacher and 2 EAs at all times. So it's a 2-to-1 ratio, which is just fantastic. And the entire room is set up, not only his room, but the other classroom for the younger grades. There's also a gross motor skills room and also what's called a snoozlin room. And the snoozlin room is sorry, I just assume that these are normal things. The snoozlin room consists of different sensory experiences and removing a lot of oversensory experiences that children may have in school. The gross motor room is basically, you know, there's a great big swing in there and there's great big mats that they can curl up into and all this. And so it's actually a fantastic, I feel so blessed that this is 1, available in my community, and 2, that my son qualified for it, because he's just thriving in that situation. So his report cards come home, and this is actually the first semester, I'll admit, that we actually received just the alternate report card. Usually we get the same report card as my daughter would, and everything on it says see IEP or see alternate report card, and it's kind of like, okay, that's a waste of 3 pages of paper. Anyway, so his is actually called an alternate report card, where the learning skills, for example, are listed differently than in a mainstream class. And he gets graded, but it's not really graded, based on whether or not the teacher or the EAs have seen those learning skills, and they're graded on a, you know, not yet observed, beginning to develop, developing satisfactory, or developing well. And those kind of learning skills that are listed are, sorry, I'm doing a lot of reading, but I can't memorize these documents, they're too big. So it includes social communication, safety, initiative, emotional well-being, organization, self-advocacy, collaboration, and self-regulation. So what's fantastic is that he's developing satisfactorily or developing well in all of those areas. Yay! Sorry, tea sip. And then they actually go down and they break down exactly how he is learning those skills and what they are seeing in class. So what's really cute, there's always these like really sweet statements in his progress report in November. I was reading along and no big deal, whatever, he's doing well, blah, blah, blah. And then it said that he has a great sense of humor and he likes to be really cheeky. And I'm like, ah! My son with autism is showing a sense of humor. If you have children with autism, you understand my excitement about this. This is fantastic. So I actually put on my personal Facebook, because everybody else was saying, oh, you know, my kids are doing great, they're getting A's and A pluses and blah, blah, blah. And so I'm like, my son's report card actually stated that he has a great sense of humor. Take that, autism. So this report cards thing that's making me really, really excited, actually excited, but it's so cute. It says under social communication, he likes to hold hands and cuddle with some of his classmates. Aww. Take that, autism. Yeah, our kids don't feel emotion and don't like other people. Whatever. And what's cute, too, is that they actually, if you go to my blog, and I'll link it below, most months I remember, but because I was so sick for a week and a bit with strep throat last week, I still haven't uploaded. They actually do this really cute calendar every month, and it's a lot of life skills. as to what they're going to be doing in their classroom. And so let me just double check here. Okay, so it's not as structured in February for the day of the week. But, for example, last month, every Tuesday, they would do their special breakfasts, and they would make a breakfast in the morning. You know, I can't even remember what it was. We'd have to look back at my blog. But I will upload this month's schedule for February and leave that link below. So you can see, you know, stuff like they have a pet therapy dog come in every Thursday to his classroom, which is just awesome. And as an aside, my mom actually runs the pet therapy program in my hometown. So she's very, very proud that my son actually has a pet therapy dog come into his class. But anyway, as I said, I'll link that below for the calendar that came out for February, so you can kind of see how things are structured differently in a special needs class. But to go back to his report card, it says stuff like he sits well with the group during our special breakfasts and other special meals with minimal prompting most of the time. Like, that's fantastic. Okay, yes, he's grade 4. This is huge news. He is sitting. If you know anything about children with autism, they don't tend to sit very much. And when my son is trying to come down from an overstimulation, he will do circuits around the inside of our house for like an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours sometimes. So for him to actually sit down for these breakfasts with his classmates is freaking fantastic. I love it. Yay! And let's see, he is also approaching new tasks with curiosity, interest, and an open mind. Our kids on the spectrum are so structured in routine that a transition like a new task is sometimes really, really difficult for our children. And it says it right here in black and white that he is actually approaching it with curiosity, interest, and an open mind. How fantastic is that? Let's see, I'm just going to do a quick scan through and see where's that other one that I was looking for. I mean, it also does say areas where he needs to improve, like when he does not like a task, for example, that they're getting him to do, because, you know, not everybody likes everything that's given to them. He will scream and yell and throw a chair and, you know, have a little tantrum. So they're trying to figure out how to minimize that and how to get him to use his either verbal communication, which is the ideal and the end goal, but also and if he's not willing to do, or he's not able to do that because he's too frustrated emotionally, then to use his iPad to be able to communicate through apps like Proloquo Go, which is what is on his iPad. It says here, when he is unhappy with a task at hand, he will say no in a loud voice, followed by a high-pitched scream, knocking down of a chair in an attempt to bolt. Clearly, we can't have that continue. So there are descriptions within this report card of how they're going to minimize that behavior. Then he does still have, you know, academic requirements as well. One is, you know, they're broken up into literacy, numeracy, living skills, which the living skills are clearly not something that is standard in a mainstream class. Physical activity, vocational skills, which nothing is listed for that one here. A pathways plan. And then they also have individual focus areas, which include annual learning goals. And the big one for him is to actually use his voice louder, because he does have a sweet, sweet little voice, but it's very, very little, which you're almost not expecting coming from a 9.5-year-old that is just really, really tall and, you know, over 100 pounds and everything. He's just got this very sweet little voice, but it is sometimes very hard to hear him. So that's a big one for his annual learning goal, is to be using a clear, consistent, audible voice. And if he's not able to verbally communicate, then to use, as I mentioned, apps like ProLoQuotaGo, just so that he can actually get his wants and his needs across properly for other people to understand, not just those of us that know him very, very well. So within the kind of academic section of the report card, it is broken down to a level of not yet observed, beginning to develop, developing satisfactorily, or developing well. And then they also have a kind of subsection of the level of support that is required for him to be able to succeed in that area. And those include that it's not yet assessed, so it may be a brand new skill that they're just starting out, so they're teaching it to him still, but they haven't been able to assess his ability to use that skill or that academic achievement. If there needs to be a physical level of support, which for our kids primarily looks like, taking his hand and getting him to point to something on a piece of paper, for example. That would be a physical level of support. A verbal level of support is one where they verbally have to prompt him to stay on task, for example, or to verbally prompt him, what is 2 + 2 equals, and write it down in here, so that you actually point out where it is that he has to put that answer. Visual level of support is, they actually have a good example of it in his report card, where instead of verbally prompting him to speak louder, they've actually started kind of wiggling their ear for him to be able to see a reminder that's a visual reminder of him needing to speak louder. And then the final level of support is where there is no support required, and that's independence. And for him, the big thing that's independent is being able to transition in and out of the school. So coming in, taking his jacket and his hat and his mittens and his boots and everything off, hanging it into their lockers, and going in, taking his lunch bag and putting it into the lunch bag area. At the last the last week or so, actually, it was while I was sick, our neighbor's son was also sick, so they were not taking my daughter to and from school because my son is actually on the bus. And but my daughter can't go on the bus because she doesn't have autism and she's not in that class, and it's a whole thing. But I'm very fortunate that my neighbor will actually bring my daughter back from school when her son is actually at school as well. And he's been off sick at the same time that I was sick. So I was having to go in and pick both of the kids up, because otherwise the bus actually arrives here at the same time that school is let out, because the autism class gets let out a bit early. And so the teacher kept telling me how great it was to see how independent he was in getting ready to go home. And I mean, she'd always told me this, but I didn't really see it until seeing it for multiple days in a row. So basically all the other teachers, or the 2 teachers and the 4 EAs for the 2 classrooms, are constantly run, keeping up with the other kids in the 2 classrooms that are part of this program, to get them to stay on task with getting all of their winter gear on, and standing and waiting for the buses to go home. And my son is the only one that they don't have to prompt him through, about 90 to 95% of the time. So that was really cool for me to actually see what she had already been telling me. So, and then to see it also reflected appropriately in this report card. And then along with the report card, sorry, I need another sip. Along with the report card also comes home a copy of the individualized education plan, which basically is a bigger document describing in more detail each of those, what do they call them? The alternative focus areas. So, and the academics that he is learning. So it just goes into more detail as to how they are supporting him to be able to achieve those goals. So yes, he's in grade 4 this year, technically, but I've mentioned in other videos that this is actually his first year where he's in full-time school for the entire year, because he's been in specialized therapy up until March break of 2014, actually. So this is his first full academic year. So we're still trying to figure out where he is academically for everything, how to teach him for all of those subjects, and how to get him to maintain it and generalize it across the board as well. So his report card especially is not one that I could just kind of quickly glance down and, oh great, he's doing well, or oh, we need to improve in this area. It's actually something where I need to sit down and really read through every single line. So it's not something that you just kind of do really, really quickly. But I love the report cards, or this form of report card, because it just gives me so much more information. And frankly, it brings a lot more questions into my mind as to how I can best support him, and generalize all of the tasks here at home as well. So we do have another meeting in about a month with the school. And at that time, I can actually go through and say, okay, well, how do I support and continue helping him develop that skill through the summertime, for example, at home, so that he doesn't regress in any way before the next school year. So our report cards are just very, very different, and it takes a bit of studying every single time they come home for me. So although I received them on Friday, it is now Tuesday after, or I guess I received them Thursday night from school, but we had a long weekend this weekend, with a PA day on Friday and then family day yesterday. So I'm just now reading them while the kids are at school, and I thought I would share how a report card is different for my son especially, compared to everyone else's report cards that they might be receiving for their children in mainstream. If you have any questions, or you want to share any successes or areas of improvement for your child from their report card, just comment down below. I think I've tried to explain a lot of the terminology that's autism specific or special needs specific. But if I haven't and you have questions, please leave them down below. Sometimes I just start talking and I don't realize that I haven't described that. So, and then also be sure to click on the link below for my blog to see February's calendar for my son's class as well. And while you're down there, don't forget to subscribe and take a look at all my other social media channels too. Talk to you guys soon. Bye.